No, I mean, I'll do like a more thorough stamp video, but this is just for today. So Lissa, this video is just for you. So I've got some graph paper that I drew what I'm going to be stamping. So just a few things about this. You know, you can just have a design that you like print out, and that's great. But if you have some graph paper, you know, that can make it a little easier for you to, you know, draw something that's a little bit more pattern orientated, or you can, you know, just freehand draw something if you want. One thing that you'll notice about this one is it may be hard to imagine this now, but with the way that I made this, it's twice as wide as it is tall. And the way the design works is it's kind of like, you know, cut in half. So I'm gonna be able to, you know, stamp this and then have like another stamp of the same thing. You know, kind of like almost the way that bricks are laid out. Mm-hmm. And it'll make it so that, you know, this point will tie into this point on this one. So it's gonna, like the sum is gonna be greater than the individual parts. When we get the stamp out, that'll probably make a little bit more sense, but.
You could go with like a daisy for the first lesson.
I mean, a daisy's easy enough. But all right, so ideally your clay would actually probably be a little harder than this. This piece of clay, I just, you know, sliced it off the top of the bag, rolled it out a few times with the, what do you call those things? Rolling pin. There we go, thanks a lot. Let's have another cup of coffee. And I've just been like letting it like sit out drying for a while.
I can't see past the block of clay and the piece of paper.
Swing over here.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I have.
There's a lot of different. Yeah. There's a lot of different tools that are good for making stamps. I'd say that these in the studio right now are probably two of the best ones because of the edges that they have. This orange one, you know, it's got this pointy part. That's going to be great for starting it. It's also got this end, which is good for starting, and each end is good for, you know, carving it out a little bit. And then this one, it's got, you know, a flat sort of tip on this side and then an angled tip on this side. It's gonna be really good if you wanna have like edges beveled so that your stamp is like multi-layered. But all right, so, you know, again, ideally we would let this dry for a little bit longer, but we're doing it. So I'm just gonna press the paper into the clay a little bit to try to make it so that it kind of like sticks a little bit and is a little bit flatter.
Question.
Yep.
Coming out of a printer, if the clay is like moist, does the image from a printer, can that like stencil on, like if I press hard enough, will I peel it back? Will I get like the image on the clay?
If you want to fuck up your cartridges and dump some of the pigment out and dump in a little bit of cobalt and red iron oxide, that what you're talking about will work perfectly.
I have a food printer. I could print it on that. And
I don't think she means like forever. I think she just wants it so that she
just
can
like a
extend
tattoo.
it. Yeah.
Oh,
because I have some like really cool tattoos too.
I think it depends on
How do
the. Well, no, I think it depends on.
It's inkjet. So with the inkjet, if you wetted it just a little bit, would it?
I think it might. Yeah. I would just test it out. Yeah. But the main way that I typically would transfer things is basically by just like tracing it. But if you do have something that can, you know, do the transfer for you, like you've got a printer that's just gonna rub off on the clay, that would be awesome.
You want me to zoom in on that for you?
Sure. So one thing that's important when you're doing this is you don't actually want to press too much. Just kind of want to go over lightly. If you press too much, it's just gonna, you know, there's gonna be spots where it rips, and also it's just gonna like distort too much, and then it's gonna be harder to trace. As much as you can, I would draw the original in pencil, and then when you trace it, trace over it with a blue colored pen, just because it makes it much easier to see what you've done and what you haven't done.
Any colored pen really work? Does it
Well,
have to be blue?
well, just like, I mean, you could use a black pen, but the black pen is only a little bit darker
Well, I also have green and red.
than, yeah, but I mean, so the main thing is just like, I would use a colored pen. Something that's just gonna contrast nicely, or I should say clearly, from the gray of the pencil. Also, if you're doing stuff like this, you know, particularly with the hand-drawn stuff, you know, you've heard me say this before, but one thing that I try to sort of repeat, and for good reason, is that it's okay if your line work isn't super crisp, especially if you have a lot of it. What's important is that you want to make sure it's all about the same quality. So if it's all a little messy, that is totally legit. Like, that's all going to go together. If you have it really, really, really clean, and then there's one little spot that's messy, that one little spot is going to look messy compared to everything else. But if everything's a little messy, everything just goes together really nicely. So I wouldn't really fret too much about someone shaking the table on you,
I think the lid was open.
or you know, having it be a little off, especially because, you know, with stamps, you know, at least with a stamp like this one, my intention is to make it so that this is kind of like, you know, this is stamped in the same pattern that like bricks would be going around. So it's just going to be a lot of visual stuff, you know. So if there's like one thing that's a little off, it's not really going to matter. And the other thing too is the more that you have going on, the less your little mistakes matter, because they're just like not noticeable in the grand scheme of things. And I'm almost done tracing this. It's probably, I mean, like I said, should really be doing this when the clay is more of a leather hard state. It just makes it much easier. The clay doesn't distort as much or bend. It just kind of takes the lines the way you want to put them, and you know, it's cleaner. But I am going to do a little bit of carving on this one just to sort of give you guys the vision. Did I go over this line? There's no like pigment on it. Oh, it does feel like I went over it. Yeah, it is like church. Quiet as a church up here. All right, so I think I've got it all traced. And again, I didn't want to press into the clay very hard because I didn't want to rip the paper, and I didn't want the surface to get like too distorted. So it's going to be fairly faint on there, but like all the detail is there. And then so the next thing I want to do is take one of these and start going over all those lines again. I would highly recommend using something like this tool that's got this like, oops, that's got this sort of point, rather than using like a needle tool, because a needle tool, you're just gonna have like these scratchy little, like the needle tool is just gonna leave all your scratchy little burrs in place. Like the needle tool is really good for like scratching a line in something. What we want to do is shovel out a little section. And this tool, because of the way that the blade is much better for that. You know, a lot of times, like, you know, with a needle tool, you guys know, you scratch it and then you take the tool away and there's not really any clay stuck on your needle tool. Whereas with this, you know, you can scratch something away and it's gonna pick up, you know, some amount of it. And it's easier to kind of make it so that you have these, you know, beveled openings, which is really what you want for a stamp. If your lines are too narrow, like if all of your lines are the width of a needle tool, it's just going to be too small to get like a good stamp out of.
Can you see that on the camera?
Yeah, you can see the image. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's in that little square.
Yeah, and we can move it a little more. Yeah, can we zoom in more? Oh wow, look at that. Go, Lissa. All right. So yeah, I'm just gonna go over some of this very, very, very gently. Again, this clay's like a little too soft, but, and this is probably about the time where you could consider, you know, saying to yourself, all right, I basically got everything out of this that I wanted to get out, because now I'm just gonna be going through and carving this very gently. And this clay is just like too soft, like I'm just getting too many burrs. So I'm actually probably just gonna leave this and let it dry for a little while, maybe just a little bit later in class. And then I'll carve it up more. And basically what I'm doing is, what I'm trying to carve here is I'm trying to carve exactly how I want it to look on my pot. And then once I'm done carving this, what I'll do is I'll take a soft piece of clay and just smush it into this. And then...
After it's bisqued.
After it's bisqued, yeah. Although you can also do it when it's bone dry if you're just, you know, a little gentle. But I'll smush some clay into this once I have it carved the way that I want it to be. And then that clay that I smush into it, that will be my stamp. So basically we carve this the way we want it to look on our pot. And then we'll smush clay into it, and that smushed clay will be the stamp. You know, we can clean that up a little bit, put a handle on it and stuff like that, make it so it's easier to hold.
And I guess maybe like you're keeping in mind that the ultimate product is going to be reduced by 12% or
so and one thing to keep in mind is, like, you know, ultimately, do you want something that's like a tiny bit bigger than what you want the final project to be? But
If you're reducing it by 12% twice, isn't it like 24%?
Yeah.
So
If
that's like a quarter bigger.
well,
That's
it's
a
not.
significant difference.
It's not going to go through the glaze firing the
Okay.
first time or the second time.
Okay.
So I mean, really, you know,
So
if we were going to take this and biscuit, it's going to shrink about 6%.
And it just stays in the
And-
biscuit form, right? It doesn't get
Yeah.
like,
And then
That's what I was gonna
and then the thing that we want to make the stamp out of, when we smush the clay, that is then going to shrink 6%. So in total, it'll shrink 12%. So 12% of a really big piece is like a lot, but 12% of something really small isn't very much. So for smaller things, you don't have to worry about the shrinkage quite as much.
That sort of seems counterintuitive.
I know,
right?
yeah.
If the mold that you're going to produce is bisqued, is it possible that it won't hold up as much as if you put it through the final firing, that it's going to be stronger?
You want it to still be porous.
Okay.
Yeah, so like typically with stamps, they're made out of wood or plaster, are the really, really common ones. You know, I love making them out of bisque clay, because I mean the bisque clay, you know, like I've got this elephant stamp floating around.
oh, I love that elephant.
Yeah, I love this elephant stamp too. And I mean, this thing, you know, he works great. And I even made him so that he was a little bit domed, like he sinks in on the middle a tiny bit, just to make it easier to put it into round forms. Yeah, I mean, this little guy's great. I mean, he's the same sort of thing where I carved this out. I took a piece of clay, I smushed it into this once it was bisqued. And then, this is the smushed piece of clay. And once you smush it in, pull it out, you can let it go leather hard. And you can, touch up some of this. But, this is basically kind of like sort of what we're pseudo shooting for. But yeah, I don't know. I love this thing. But I should use it more often.
I keep forgetting about it.
I know, yeah.
Do you think you use that pointy tool to do this?
Yes, I did. Although I think what I did was I used the pointy tool and then I just went in with like something like this that just to widen it. Yeah. I'm gonna stop this video. We've covered everything, Lissa. Thank you so much. Oh wait, it's not recording anymore. Oh, it is recording. Okay.